Creativity is the most important human resource of all. Without creativity, there would be no progress and we would be forever repeating the same patterns. And that's a quote by Edward de Bono. So, thank you for tuning in to The Profitable Photographer. And I'm so excited to introduce my guest today, Shawna Pearce, and I'll tell you about her in a minute. Please also find this podcast on all podcast platforms, or I'm also on YouTube, so I don't know where you're finding me, but please subscribe. And because an angel gets her wings when you do. All right. So, Miss Shawna, she is a
Yeah,
fine art photographer and an educator. She has a gift for turning memories into timeless treasures. Uh, she creates stunning heirloom portraits that honor family history and also does the most whimsical storybook composites that are bursting with imagination and wonder. I love that. She also is so passionate about helping others create masterpieces of their art and tell their stories. And guess what? She has a website that's filled with composite items that you can uh, add to your whimsical, wonderful work. And so you can check that out. All right. So, hello. Welcome, Shauna.
well, thank you for having me here.
You're
I'm
welcome.
excited to be here.
You're welcome. Uh, um, in a just a couple of sentences, can you share how you got into doing photography or doing this really creative style of work?
Absolutely. So I started out about 15 years ago, kind of like your story, actually, where I decided on doing newborn sessions. And then as my clients grew up, so did I.
Mhm.
And as they grew older, I grew older, and I felt like it was time for me to branch out from newborn photography into children's fine art. And so for a long time, I was doing my storybook, and I still am doing my storybook imagery. But then lately, I've just found this passion for heirloom photography. And so I've become obsessed with that. And so now I do both. I do the storybook
Mhm.
imagery and heirloom
Awesome.
photography. So,
So, how did you decide to have a photography business?
when I was a poor, newly mom, and I wanted pictures of my kids, and I couldn't afford it. And so I started taking pictures of my kids and a lot of lifestyle portraits of them. And pretty soon I had people asking me to take pictures of their kids, and I would do it. And then I was like, well, this is taking all of my time. I should start a business. If I'm going to do this, I should make some money so that I can help, financially our family. And so my husband actually was on board, and he said, I need you to call like five different photographers and find out, learn from them
Mm.
how the business goes. And funnily enough, I got ghosted by a lot, but I had one man, his name was Jim Fort, and he's based out of Twin Falls, Idaho. And he would sit with me for hours on the phone, teaching me Photoshop and teaching
Aw.
me how to start. So that's really where my love for helping others spawned from, because he changed my life. And so that's where I love to educate others and help them to you know, be the best for their clients. So,
Love that story. So here's a
yeah.
couple of things I love about it. Number one, um, that you started, like I'm sure a lot of my listeners, a lot of people that are members of PPA or not members, that started out as a parent photographing their kids, and then it just kind of turned into a path that I'm guessing you couldn't really have expected. And then
Yeah.
I love hearing um, that you found a mentor. I think that is so important or so helpful to speed us along. And like this industry, yes, there are people that don't want to share, but there are people like you and I and the gentleman that you mentioned that get great joy out of helping others learn. And it's really not about making money. I'm right now, my podcast is a labor of love, not a money-making machine, and that's cool with me. So I love that. I my first thing, because I only knew the yellow pages, is I started calling local photographers to see if they
Hmm.
needed any free assistance or even not free. And I started at the back under Z. And that's how I got connected then to the local PPA chapter. So much education available for that. So, um,
Yeah.
okay, so I need to sh gush a little bit about uh, one of your images and why when I saw that recently, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get Shawna on my show. Um,
Oh.
So there's an international competition with PPA now. What's it called? The
Um, IPC,
okay,
International Photography.
print competition. And
Yeah.
so the work, so you send in work and there's a panel of judges and they do an either or. It's probably, I don't know how they do it, but eventually by the time for the Imaging Expo, it's boiled down to I don't know, I'll just guess 50 excellent images. And then they do this comparison, and eventually one image has made it all the way through and wins. And so I was sitting in the show or the judging in Texas. And when I saw your photograph of the mom and four girls braiding and doing each other's hair, uh, that was my favorite. Well, I had two favorites. I had the one that won, and I had yours. And so I watched yours all the way along. And so you've got to go to her Facebook and her website and find that. Can you tell us a little about that image and how the idea came to you and what it took to put it together?
Yes, and that was one of my favorite images. Um it was on a Mother's Day session that I did. The four girls are actually quadruplets. Um and so there are two sets of twins in there, and they are just a joy. They just love, they are each other's best friends. And I kind of thought, you know what is so fun is that these little girls just doing their hair and their nails, and they're just giggling the whole time. And some of the other poses that I got is like the mom reading to all of the kids. I've always had a sense of nostalgia that I love, so that's why it's kind of in the past time. It's like a modern vintage vibe, I guess, if you
Hmm.
will. Uh, and so like the dresses are from this, I love their store. It's Ivy City Co. And so they're all matching. And I just thought how fun was it that they would all do each other's hair and the mom would get in on it. And so, but I wanted them separated so that they weren't getting lost in each other. And so that's kind of why I had an assembly line for them.
Hmm.
And then they just love their dog. And so I actually had them, take a picture of their dog and send it to me so that I could add it in later,
Hmm.
because they didn't think to bring the dog to the session, which why would you, But their dog is just a beloved member of their family. And I thought, I need the last little girl to do something
Mhm.
because it just kind of feels a little bit off if she was kind of just sitting in there and not having anything to do. And so I said, why don't you just send me a picture of your dog and I will add that in, and I called him and I said, okay, make sure that the light is in this direction to match the light of all the direction
Mhm.
that's in the image, and have him looking up and stuff like that. So that was the image they sent me, and it worked out perfectly.
So, so, at a consultation, I assume you discussed the possibilities and the clothing. They didn't just show up in jeans and then you said, "Here, let's do this." So, how did you come up with? Well, you've already shared how you came up with the idea. How did you come up with um, the scene, the clothing? How did you help the mom prepare?
A lot of phone calls, a
Okay.
lot of texting back and forth of what about this dress? Do you like this dress? Do we want, I do have a client closet at my studio so that a lot of times people they don't have to they don't have to think about that. Usually I will have if they're wanting, my style and my look, I have outfits at my studio. And
Mm.
I try to have quite a bit of variety.
Hmm.
It's mostly dresses though, because with the young men, it's usually jeans and a button-up shirt, and then they can keep it, like I have some suspenders, newsy boy hats,
Hmm.
stuff like that that they can bring in bow ties, more accessories, I guess. But for the girls, it's so easy to buy for girls, and then I get the thrill of retail therapy, and but I keep buying them. But with them being quadruplets, and they wanted to all wear the same thing, the mom. I told her my favorite stores, and she kind of browsed through her favorites, and then we kind of narrowed it down to what that would be like. We wanted something a little frilly. Um, a lot of times with you want flowy uh dresses or clothes so that you're comfortable in them. You don't want something that's very restrictive because then bad moods happen a
Yeah.
lot quicker. And so, teaching the clients of, why certain dresses are better than others, and that's all part of it that's going in that education to the clients, is making sure that they're picking something that will be comfortable, that flows nice, so that it's camera ready too, so that
Right.
it
Right.
it's yeah, the aesthetics is great.
Right. I'm looking at portraits behind you, and
Yes.
they all have the solid colors. And the family
Yes.
of four, those tones all go together. There's not like one that's polka dot or um, light to the other kind of jewel tony. So I see the evidence that I'm guessing it not just with the fanciful storytelling, but with other portraits that you would do with people that are lovely, little bit more traditional, that you're still giving those clothing tips. Am I right on that?
Yes, absolutely. This dress right here is well, they're sisters.
Mm,
And so this is their great grandmother's dresses that she wore in the 40s.
wow.
And so this one, I live in some pretty old towns.
Where do you
We have a
live?
lot of them here in Utah, in Lehi, Utah.
Okay.
And so we have a lot of, old Main Street, you know, um, places that just bring it all together. And
Mhm.
this one we have, um, there's about 45 minutes away, there is a train station. It's called the Heber Creeper. That's the
Mm.
nickname, but it's the Heber train station. And so we got to go on one of their trains and bring those those dresses back to life and stuff.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
my heirloom photography, that's part of it.
Yeah. And so that story, even though looking at it for me, not knowing them, not knowing the story, I see them as really nice portraits with good clothing consultation, but they know and you know additional stories to that. I might
Yes.
have ridden on the Heber Creeper. I used to ski, or maybe I never could because it was closed in the winter or something, but always wanted to. I've gone to Utah
Yeah,
a
no,
bunch.
they do a
Are there
fun
other general clothing tips that you give, whether someone's doing a storytelling or a lovely, just classic portrait? Other hot tips that people could know?
yes. Texture. You want different, sometimes different texture that is built on another one. So if you have like a cotton dress, sometimes even like a yarn shawl over it, just that different
Ah,
texture,
I love that.
it creates it just creates depth
Yeah.
and it creates, your eye is drawn to the different things and it creates a story in itself because you're like, oh, what a beautiful dress, but look at this. And so, it just brings more to the image by having that extra texture.
Yeah, I love that. It's like you can feel it with your eyes and,
Yes.
because that's how we experience it.
Yes.
All right, so I I see both in your website and the notes you sent me that the word heirloom is an important one in your work. So, can you define what you mean by heirloom? That's my first question about it. I know you've touched on
Yeah.
it, but a little more.
So to me, the heirloom is your story. And your story originates somewhere from someone. Um, and sometimes we probably don't know our story back, and that's totally fine, but you're in the middle of creating your own story. So even though I know I grew up in a family that has done family history and genealogy and stuff like that. So I grew up with a love for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand that, um, not everybody grows up with that. They don't know where to start. They don't know, and maybe they don't have family, that they're able to find these stories from. And that's okay because your story starts for somebody else so it's any time for me that it's an item that you or like that represents you. So on my website I have a little girl that was she's wearing curlers that are made out of thread bobbins and
Mm-hmm.
then she's holding a tea. And I want a story in a story. And so um those are her great grandmother's thread spools, and then that's her teacup or her great great grandmother's teacup.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I want when people see these images is, and it was really funny because when I was they brought these things because when I consult with the clients, I say to them, bring something that represents your family, something old, something kind of like the whole wedding, something blues, something, borrowed, something. So then I say, okay, why don't you bring something old, something that comes from the family, and something pretty, or something like that. And then when I saw what they brought, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if we were to do? And I explained what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And they both had the look of, okay. I
Sure,
trust you.
Shawna. Uh-huh.
That's weird. But, it came out and it's great because when we look at that, we say, oh, those are old thread spools. Where did they come from? And it starts the questions. It starts the creativity. Oh, that's a really pretty teacup. where is that from? Where did she find that? Oh, that's her great great grandmother's, you know. And then as they have, it's a conversation piece on their wall at home. And so to me, even if they don't have things like that, let's say you're into painting, bring a paintbrush, you know, bring a canvas, a an easel or something like that. And
Hmm.
we'll find a way to tell your story, to either create an heirloom or to show off an heirloom. So that's where that heirloom comes in. It's something that freezes that time frame of who you are to share with people and, generations to come, or to share with generations to come the things that shaped who you are today,
Hmm.
if that all makes sense.
Oh, it makes total sense. What I love about what you do with those is that you don't just like pile up a bunch of things. Like I'm thinking about maybe somebody's senior portrait that was very active in sports, and you line up some trophies and a holding a ball and leaning on a bat, and where it's and those are good too. Those are fun too. But it doesn't feel heirloomy. And I love how you bring those in a way that where you're not thinking, oh, we're showing off some props, but that you kind of dig into that feeling or that story. I love that. And then I love your line that you're creating that your clients may be holding an heirloom and the portrait itself becomes an heirloom. I I think that's
Hmm.
such a cool thing that because all of our work becomes family heirlooms if they
Right.
use them, display them. Um, the little family that I had talked to you about that's over my what is this, my right shoulder. Um, they have like six wall portraits. And I think those kids are probably graduating. Maybe the oldest one is graduating from high school right now because it's been about 12, 13 years. It was hotter than Hades on that day. Oh my gosh. Um, so now this is their history. That if they'd had something, the way that you style the image itself and include those gives it even more of a sense of this is something that could have been taken ages ago
Hmm.
or new, but then nothing's ever new after the first, moment that it's created. It becomes part of our history. So I love that. I've often thought about, and way before this could be done digitally, there's there's a picture of my mom sitting in a field of flowers and when she was young, and there's a picture of me in a field of flowers, and I've thought about uh, doing something with and her mother. I don't have baby pictures of her mother. I have other photographs, but it would be so cool to come up with something that's very would have to be more digitally produced, but where we're all the same age playing together in a field of flowers.
Oh, how fun.
I've thought that would
Yeah,
be so cool. Um,
that would be amazing.
yeah. And now that like the AI tools could take a picture of my grandmother and figure out what she might have looked like young, right? That's a doable
Yeah,
thing. So yeah, that would be a fun thing to do for people too,
absolutely.
is because I had a big revelation about my father's mother who she was kind of difficult. But after her memorial, I pictured the two of us as children together running through a field, and I began to realize the person she was rather than the one I experienced as an older kind of critical grandmother. I think she would have qualified as OCD at this point. She would have had a
Mm,
diagnosis. But anyway, that's a whole other family heirloom story. So,
I love
a question about the four girls and the mom.
it.
Was that I know it was a partial composite because you added the dog. Did
Yes.
did you line up and light all five, the mom and the three girls together and click, 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 or was that a full composite? How much of that
No,
happened?
they were all lit. They were all lined up at the same um on the same plane. Um, and because I wanted it to be as authentic as possible.
Hmm.
I don't I didn't think I would get the same. Okay, I'm going to back up just a little bit. When I do my storybook imagery, I actually will have them doing what I need them to do as though they were doing it in the picture. So if they are painting, I did one where a little boy just loved gorillas and he wanted to paint with a gorilla in his image. And so I actually had him with a paintbrush painting because my whole goal is to make it as true as possible.
Mm.
And so if I just say, hold your hand up and, start pretend like you're painting, you're not going to have the same movement. You're not going to have the same posture, stuff like that, that would make it real. So when I did that image, I didn't want it to be like, oh, pretend like you're brushing your sister's hair. I wanted it to be they were really brushing each hair. I bought 5 different brushes that all look the same. I bought, you know, um, we had the different chairs, but that's okay. I wanted it that way, for them to sit on so that they had the different heights and stuff like that. Um, but I wanted it for my lighting, or I wanted it all there the same. I wanted mom's face really into brushing her daughter's hair. Because I wouldn't get that if they were
Yeah,
just pretending.
yeah.
So, um, the way I did my lighting on that one is I had a softbox at a 45-degree angle to them on camera left, and then I have a huge window
Mm.
that I use actually just as my fill light,
Mm.
because it's a massive window and I have it where I have sheer white curtains over it
Hmm.
so that it acts as a soft box, and then I use that as my fill light. So between the two of those, that's how I had
Wow.
lit
Wow.
it
Lit.
lit it.
That's how I done lit it.
Yeah. I do not know where that came from,
Yeah, lit.
but yeah, that's how I did it.
I love the simplicity of that. I'm someone that uh, uses studio light because it's necessary for something I might want to achieve, but I don't really
Hmm.
enjoy it. One of the reasons I like going outside, and I know how to find good light outside, um,
Yes.
not just out in a field with an overcast sky with shadows in the eyeballs and the eyes, but the simplicity of that that works for me. I love photographing in people's homes and using their windows a lot.
Hmm.
So that makes my soul happy to realize that you were able to do that with simple lighting, but get everything you need and all the texture and everything. So, are there
Yeah.
some elements that were composited besides the dog? I don't have it in front of me, so no, just
No, that was it. That was it, the only thing. There is I brought it from my home. In the back behind the mom is like a little cabinet. And that had been sitting in my grandmother's garage forever.
Mm,
And I'm like, why is this sitting in the garage? This
mm,
is ridiculous. It's like
mm,
it needs to come home with me, and I can find very many ways to use it. And so I brought that in from my house, knowing that it was going to be kind of, I wanted a look of like a room without it being a room. So
right.
I just put that there with a vase of flowers and a little candle lantern, one of those oil lamps.
Hmm.
And so I guess you could say I did put in the little flame because, obviously I'm not going to have an open flame at
Yeah.
a session,
With all that
but
hair.
so you could say I that was one extra thing that I added in there as well, but everything else, I put the jars of or vases of flowers in front of
Mhm.
them, so that was all set up.
I love that.
So,
I love that.
yeah.
And then because you have a certain style of toning with some of those, um, any special things that you do, any tricks to that? Not tricks because, it's not
Yeah.
tricky to create beauty, but is there some steps that you do to get a certain look to some of your images?
Yeah, I will always, how do I do it? It's funny because to be honest, I never go out each image I I hand paint, I do it separate like from any other image. It starts off as a raw image and then it takes me where like the
Mm,
image itself, it I edit it to how I feel the image. And it was interesting because when I just, redid my website, and so in my I was adding all the images and I was like, holy cow, I have a look
mhm,
because they are so consistent. But one of the things that I'll do is that during when I open it at first, I will go into my camera raw and I will always bump down my highlights and I will always bump up my shadows and I always bump up my blacks. And it kind of gives me more of a clean look to it, a more even look to the
mhm,
lighting. And then that way I can be like, you know what? I think I'm going to add a little bit more contrast. I do end up having like this really soft, it's almost like a rosy warm color to my
mhm,
images, as you can see here.
mhm,
And so a lot of times, my reds are a little bit higher and my blues are a little bit higher
mhm.
if I'm thinking about what I do in my color balancing and stuff like that. So, and then and then I will warm it up. So,
So here's what I love about what you just said. You did image by image what feels right for that image. And
mhm,
in that, you've discovered that you have a style, that you have
mhm,
things that you do regularly as your artist sensibility. Just like, okay, so I'm jumping off from the constant thing that I, I try not to be judgy about it, but I guess I am, that people are like, what is my editing style? Or I won't change that for a client because it's not my editing style. Um, and um, so what I love is that you do what feels right, not something where you have a certain set of actions or something that makes every one of your images have similarity. It's just that, like Van Gogh has a color palette that he used consistently, but I don't think he sat around talking to other artists saying, I need to find a color palette. He did what felt right. So my work tends to be pretty true peaches and cream skin tone, um, really natural color, little bit. saturated because in California, with all the sunshine, the world looks pretty bright and colorful around me. I've noticed people that live like in the Midwest where you get a lot of either summer uh, humidity haze or, this like there's flat lighting a lot. A lot of times their style tends to be like that, or a photo lab will have a leaning towards a certain toning, and I think it's because that's what they see every day. Does that make sense to you?
It does. It does. And a lot going with that with the California, I can see that because when I grew up in Las Vegas, Henderson area,
Hmm.
and so we went to California all the time. And yes, it is a vibrant color there, so I could see, you know, that would be something that you would that people love there, you
Right.
know. For me, along those lines, my coloring, because I do more of the storybook and the, vintage, modern vintage type of a thing, my colors tend to be more muted because
Hmm.
of that, just they're back in the back, 100 years ago, um, there wasn't the vibrant colors. They were very muted.
Hmm.
And so I tend to go with that as well for my stories.
Hmm.
So that is an interesting way to put it is, yeah, how that works.
Abilities. So, for example, um, San Diego used to have professional labs. Probably a lot of other cities did, and now I have to send my work and they have to ship it back to me. And I was using a lab that was near me, and I had the hardest time getting color that looked normal. And I didn't know enough to realize it was the lab's choosing, not me. My exposures were good and
Hmm.
different things. And they would try to blame me because they didn't have very good customer service.
Oh.
And then I moved, and a different lab was closer to me. And all of a sudden, same images, everything looked beautiful and just how I loved it. And what I discovered is the one I was using before, a lot of their clients I'm on the border of Tijuana, Mexico. A lot of their clients were from Baja California. And because of cultural things, warmer, um, a little bit like what I'd consider too dark was what looks right for them. And that's when I started understanding, that photo labs have a wide range of choices. And now with digital, we have those wide range of choices. Film used to be color balanced. This is something probably not many people know that are listening, and you might not know this, or maybe you do. But like, we wouldn't want to buy what was called gray market film. Have you ever heard of that, Shauna?
No,
Okay.
actually, I haven't.
So gray market
I
film.
came in just as film was going out.
Okay.
So that's where we had to at my high school, we did have to learn film, but I never did the film developing, so I just took the pictures.
Ah. So gray market film was film that was made for a different country.
Okay.
And the film that was made for the US did have saturation, vibrant colors as a default in the film. If it was made for Japan, it had a different tone, more greens and blues. If it was made for Mexico, it was warmer film. And now there is no bias at all, and we have to decide which is great. And photo labs could override, if like what I didn't know is if I use the cheaper film, uh, my lab could make it look the way I like it, but it was easier for them to make it a certain tone that is what, in different countries, what the preferences are. So, anywho, yeah, I love talking about all kinds of different things on this show that we don't always get into. So we're
Yeah.
almost out of time. So I've got two questions, well, two and a half. So question one, how do people see your work and or get in touch with you?
They can go to my website.
Which is,
It's shaunapearcestudios.com, and it's Pearce.
okay.
I didn't realize when I married my husband that every time I say it in my last name, I'd have to spell it afterwards.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so Shawna with a W, pearcestudios.com. You can reach out to me. There's a contact page on there. You can go and find me on Facebook under Shawna Pierce Studios or photography. I don't know if I changed that yet. And then on Instagram as well. I'm also on
Okay.
LinkedIn. So all
Great.
the ways.
So what we haven't really mentioned, this is the other half, is that you have a treasure trove of information, education, and composite items like fairy wings and things that people can purchase. So, is that in Shauna Pierce Studios, where
Yes,
you can
it's
see
all
that?
in there.
Okay.
You can go to, I have tutorials on how I edit my image, the images that are on there that I update once or twice a month, depending on the month.
Hmm.
And when I do the tutorials, for instance, on there is it's my version of Alice in Wonderland. This one was it's a composite one, and it comes with all the elements so that you can edit right along with me. They're broken up into like 10-minute segments so that you don't have to sit down for an hour and not have a stopping point.
Hmm.
So you can just do little by
Fun.
little and so you can, yeah, that's on there. And then digital downloads, you can just buy more if you're like, oh, I want different teddy bears. Those are in there too.
Fun.
So,
So I know you have a gift for us.
yes.
So what is that and how did they get to it?
Okay. So, um, one of the things that is in my blog that you guys are going to be able, it's free for everybody, but I want to make sure if you're wanting to go down this road of heirloom photography and stuff like that, there is a booklet that it's in one of the blogs. I can't remember which one it is, but
Okay.
at the bottom they can download that. It's a workbook on finding things around your house or how your clients can find things around their house to start their heirloom journey. But the gift that I'm giving just you guys
Mm-hmm.
is um, I have a smorgasbord. There's about 10 images. They've already been cut out. They're already PNG files that you can add to your heirloom or storybook images.
I love it. And the address is Shauna Pearson Studios plural.com/Lucy. Okay.
Yes.
So
So
last question
only,
is
yeah.
just your parting thought, something that you want to leave us with to inspire us or, whatever
Yeah.
comes to mind.
Question. I just want to hopefully leave you guys with this sense of excitement and, this new vigor of finding out stories of who you are. I think there's so many stories to tell, and you can tell it through photography.
Mm,
You can tell, you know, you don't just need a pose and that's all great, but there's a story there. What is that story? Ask yourself, what is the story behind this image? And it's going to take you down a road that I think will, open up more creativity. It's going to open up um, a sense of who you are, a sense of who your client is.
mm.
And so just ask, what is the story here?
I love it. I love it. All right, so everyone stay tuned for my little quick wrap up. And Shawna, I just want to thank you so much for saying yes. And you were excited and honored, and I was excited and honored that you said yes. So
Yeah,
we're
so
both,
happy.
we're both happy and excited and honored.
Yes.
So thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, after a little quick goodbye to Miss Shauna, I'm back with you, and I'm not sure how I'm going to wrap up what we talked about. But let's see. We talked about heirloom portraits, and that what she loves to do is include things in these storytelling, beautiful photographs that have history to them for people so that they're celebrating their history with heirlooms. And then the photograph itself, the art itself, becomes an heirloom. Um, so I thought that was a really cool twist. She defined heirloom as telling your story and yeah, something that is represents you, and also that there's a story within a story. I love that. And then we covered how she photographed that beautiful picture of the mom and the four daughters, two sets of twins, um, and how they planned the clothing and where she got her inspiration and how she propped it. And what I loved learning was that 90% of that image was what was photographed. It wasn't a bunch of composites, which not saying there's anything wrong with that, but to just change a few little things and then add what feels right to her. I loved knowing that. And I also loved that she discovered that she had a style rather than trying to figure out a style. That she takes each image and she explores the potential. And I really love that way of working. So, anywho, be sure to get her special gift. It's just her website slash Luci, Luci. I got to remember to tell her the spelling of Lucy. And until next time, bye bye.